Hello there! It's a fabulous Tuesday. All right. So, today we're going to talk about taking your power back. Now, there is probably something in your life that is stealing your power, also stealing your joy. Hello, love, how are you? So we're going to talk about this. So the very first thing that I'm going to ask you, there's a bunch of like stink bugs crawling down my window right now, totally distracted. Okay, so when it comes to reclaiming your power, I want to say, I'm going to ask you a question, and the very first thing that pops up in your mind is the thing that's stealing your power. So, I'm going to say, ready? What is stopping you from living the life that you want? Okay? So, this could be your husband, this could be your money, this could be your weight, this could be you don't have any time. Whatever that reason was that popped up, okay, it's going to be one of three categories, four potentially. So it's going to be money, it's going to be time, it's going to be energy, or it's going to be a relationship. Those are the four things. They will all fall into one of those categories. It's going to be one of four things that's actually stealing your power, that's taking your power. You're giving your power to that thing, okay? For me, it used to be my time. I would tell you regularly, I don't have any time. I would love to do that, but I don't have any time. I would love to do that, but I don't have any time. I can't. I have 4 kids. I don't have time for that, right? That was my excuse for everything. It was the excuse that no one could argue with because it feels like a pretty valid excuse, but I used it all the time. I don't have time for that. Oh, I would love to grow my business, but I don't have time for that. Oh, I would love to be happier, but I don't have time for that. That was my excuse for everything. I gave all of my power away to time. All of it. Okay. Then, once I got really good with my time and we had a great relationship with my time, money came up and I started to give my power away to money. And it was, oh, I don't have the money for that. No, that's too expensive. I don't have the money for that. Oh, I would love to do that, but I don't have the money for that. And I gave my power away to money. It became my excuse for everything. It's a pretty legitimate excuse too. Not many people are going to argue with you when you say you don't have the money for something. But the truth was, in both of these scenarios, one, I didn't know where my time was going. And I didn't know where my money was going. And so not knowing where they were going made it a very valid reason as to why I didn't have it. Because I wasn't giving myself the opportunity to actually choose what to do with my time or my money because I was just in reaction mode. I was doing the same thing that I had always done because it was fastest, it was easiest, and it was done. Right? My spending habits were the same. How I spent my day was the same. It was utterly exhausting in both accounts. But it was what I knew, even though it wasn't serving me in any way, shape, or form. And so I just kept doing it and doing it, expecting different results. This is the definition of insanity, doing the same thing and expecting different results, okay? So what I'm going to recommend that you do, whichever of those things you came up with, whether it was time, money, energy, or relationship, I want you to get very hyper aware of where you're spending that time, money, energy, or relationship, okay? Super, super aware, okay? So if you're using your kids as an excuse, why? Why are you using your kids as your excuse? What is it? How is it serving you, right? If you're using time for an excuse, where is it going? Do you actually know what you're spending your time on? If you're using money as an excuse, do you really know what you're spending your money on? Because if you don't know where your energy is going, energy you can use in the same sort of sense with time if you're not super familiar with your own energetic levels. So for me, I know that my energy dips when I'm not having fun doing something. And so I make sure that I infuse my day with fun and joy and things that are lighthearted and exciting. I literally will make anything into a game because that increases my joy level, which also increases my energy level. Okay. So, but time and money are these two really, really big things that we say we can't do something. You can't build your business. You can't have the life you want because you don't have the time or the money. Okay. So get super hyper aware of where your time and money is going, right? So for me, when I initially did this exercise with time, I found out that I was spending an exorbitant amount of time and energy obsessing over laundry. True statement. Obsessing over laundry. I thought I would be the first mom in the world to really check laundry off of the list of to-do things and like officially be done with it. Turns out, unless we're living in a nudist colony, laundry is never done. Ever. And so I gave up that battle, right? When it came to money, I got really aware of where I was spending the money. I spent an entire month just tracking where money was going. I didn't change any of my spending habits. I didn't think about money differently. I simply tracked where all my money was going. And then once I knew where it was going, I had the opportunity to say, oh, well, shoot, I don't want to spend $200 a month on takeout pizza. I would rather spend $50 a month on takeout pizza and $20 to make pizza at home the rest of the week, right? The other weeks of the month, right? Because we're pretty routine around here. We like our pizzas on Friday night. Ask anybody, they will testify to that. So, but I was like, shoot, I have no desire to spend $200 on pizza every month. But I didn't know where my money was going, so I couldn't choose differently. So when you get aware of where your time, your money, your energy is going, okay, because it's either going to something that's serving you or something that's not serving you, then you have that opportunity to choose again. Now, this is where it can get a little bit trickier, okay? And I say trickier because it's going to take more energy initially. Yes, oh, Morgan. So overwhelm is the winner. Yeah, I feel that. I feel that. So Morgan, let's go through this overwhelm. So this overwhelm is an emotional state. We're going to call this in that energy category. Okay. So you can't do it because you're overwhelmed, right? I get that. I get it. I've been there, done that, got the t-shirt, all the things, right? So when it comes to overwhelm, you can't do it because you're overwhelmed. Okay. So what I like to do when I'm in that state, because it's the same thing, I've been there, I get there sometimes now too, not as much as I used to. But when I feel overwhelmed, what I will actually do is I will talk myself through it. And I know that you're good at this too, Morgan. And so I'll say, okay, what am I overwhelmed about? Well, I'm overwhelmed about, let's say I'm overwhelmed about going out of town. Okay, so my husband and I are going to Mexico in a couple of weeks. I'm very excited about it, but I know like the day before there's going to be major overwhelm trying to coordinate everything beforehand, right? As a mom, we have a lot of moving parts, okay? But overwhelm in the end doesn't actually serve us at all. It's simply an emotional state that we've gotten used to and we think it's normal. And so what I like to do, this is really helpful for me, is I'll say, okay, what am I overwhelmed about? Okay, maybe I'm overwhelmed about getting ready to go out of town. Okay, so I will make myself a little bit of a checklist. I'll grab a piece of paper, I'll put it on my phone, whatever it is, and I'll say, okay, here are the things that need to be done before I go. Okay, so whether it's grocery shopping, coordinating schedules, printing off schedules, you know, getting the kids' rides coordinated, whatever it is, right? I'm going to make a checklist, and then I'm going to say, okay, where can I actually fit this in? When can I get these done? Well, most of the time, those things are only going to take me a few minutes once I actually sit down to do the thing. It's really not going to take me very long. But the overwhelm comes in where I am making it this really big thing. I am thinking about how much time it's going to take. I am thinking about all of the worst case scenarios where it's going to take way less time if I write it down so I don't forget, right? And two, if I just did it, right? This is a conversation I have with my kids a lot. I'll be like, hey, can you come empty the dishwasher? Oh, I don't want to empty the dishwasher. And I'm like, you are going to spend more time arguing with me about emptying the dishwasher than it's actually going to take you to empty the dishwasher. And so what we do is we spend more time worrying and thinking about the thing than it actually takes us to do the thing. Okay? And Morgan, correct me if I'm wrong, but is there a little bit of perfectionism that adds to this overwhelm? Because I can certainly attest to that. You want it to be perfect, and so you're not ready to put the thing out into the world because it's not perfect. The truth is it's perfect and a work in progress at the same time. It's perfect for that moment, and maybe you change it down the road, right? This was a conversation I had with somebody recently, and I was talking about this platform that I wanted to create. I had this great idea. Yes, definitely. Okay, so I had this really great idea, and I was like, well, I really want it to be like this. And he was like, well, that's a really great idea, but what's the bare minimum that you could start with and get this off the ground so that you're actually making progress with it? And I thought, well, shoot, the bare minimum is like Zoom. Zoom would work as well, right? Like I could start with Zoom and that would be fine, and a very basic website and that would be fine. And then as money rolls in, I could integrate all these other things. And he said, yes, exactly. He said, so take that big picture, that $1 million version of you, if you're familiar with me, which I know Kelly and Morgan, you are very familiar with this exercise. So that $1 million version of you, that perfect, right? That perfect version of you, your $1 million version of you, it's going to have a bunch of things on it. Start with one of them. Because the $1 million version of you doesn't happen like that. It happens one step at a time. So if overwhelm is the thing that you're struggling with, get aware of what are the things that are actually causing you overwhelm. Right? There's probably a lot of things that could be causing the overwhelm. But do you need to be overwhelmed about any of them? Probably not, because overwhelm is just an emotional response that's actually not going to get us anywhere. And I can say that from I'm really good at getting overwhelmed and worked up about stuff. Overanalyzing, also my cup of tea, right? And so get really clear. What is the thing that's causing overwhelm? Is it lack of time? Is it lack of money? Is it lack of energy? One of those things is actually filtering into your overwhelm. And once you get clear about where you're actually spending that thing, it's going to make it much easier to overcome that overwhelm. So for me, overwhelm, the biggest trigger for my overwhelm is that I don't have enough time. That is the biggest trigger. I think that something's going to take me substantially longer than it actually does, but that's because I've spent so much time thinking about how much time that thing's going to take. Right? So this is where if I am diving into a more complicated project, I give myself a buffer zone and I say, okay, I'm going to spend 30 minutes on this today, and that's going to be good enough. It's not perfect, but that's going to be good enough to get me moving in the direction that I want. And that's a really good one. So the other thing that I really love to do in terms of being aware, so my energy was one that I had to work through as well. I was giving my energy to a lot of different things, and I had to figure that out. And so what I did was I filled a little purse full of all these pennies. I had, I think, 100 pennies in it. And every time I felt myself react, just knee-jerk react to something, I took a penny out. Every day. I had 100 pennies, and I would take a penny out every time I reacted to something without responding, right? So reaction is simply that you're reenacting a previous situation. So you're bringing your past into the present. That's what reacting is, okay? I don't like to react. I prefer to respond. And so responding gives me the opportunity to say, okay, how do I actually want this situation to play out? And so what I did was this little coin bag. I would take a penny out each time I reacted during the day. And at the end of the day, I would look down at all of these pennies and I would say, okay, was that worth reacting to? Nope, I'm not going to do that again. Was this one worth reacting to? No, how would I change that? Okay, cool. And so at the end of the day, I would see that I was reacting to all the things. Okay, so Morgan says it would be all three, time and money, but the biggest is having the energy to do everything and not knowing how much energy I will have that day until I crash. Yes, so absolutely. I totally understand that. Energy plays a huge role in this. And so I don't like that you're working until you crash. That makes me a little bit sad. But what I want you to think about is, what are the things that are bringing you energy? And how can you bring more of that into your day, even if it's just for a few minutes, right? So I know that sometimes when I sit down and do my work on the computer, it can be very draining if I'm on the computer for too long. And so I will get up, I'll do periodic breaks where I'll get up and I'll have a dance party, because that re-energizes me. Even if it's 5 minutes, that is what helps me to re-energize. I also have rewritten some of these things. Like, I used to tell myself that my kids were exhausting and they were energy draining. And I decided to rewrite that because I didn't want to ever feel that way about my kids. And so I decided that my kids are my energy fillers. So I look at them differently now. I have so much fun when I'm around them. Sometimes they can be exhausting, right? Because you're like, oh my God, right? But I give myself the space to be okay that I'm overstimulated at the moment. And then I say, okay, I want to have fun with my kids. So what do I need to do for myself to change this? And usually it's just like shaking out the energy, like the stuck energy, or I have like a little dance party where I do some breath work. I'll just take some deep breaths and go, okay, I want to have fun with my kids. So how can I make this more fun? I want to have fun with my kids. How can I make this more fun, right? That, for me, works almost all of the time, because joy is my energizer. The more fun, and it's true for everybody, the more fun that you have, the more energy that you're going to have. And so what can you do to re-energize yourself at the end of the day? This also plays in part to your human design as well, Morgan. So that's something to consider and look into. But I definitely get that, right? How much energy will I have until I crash? Totally understand it. Okay, so what I would love for you to do is to get aware of what that thing is and start to decide how you want to respond differently. I don't want you to keep reacting, because, as I said before, that's just the definition of insanity, doing the same thing and expecting a different result. That's your reaction. When you respond, that is giving you the opportunity to say, okay, what do I want to do in this situation? And you can do a little role play with yourself, right? So I know that when my 5-year-old loses her mind and she starts whining and crying, my reaction is to retaliate and yell and scream at her. That's my reaction. My response is I want to just sit with her and understand her emotion. Why is she having a meltdown? And I just want to make sure that she knows it's okay to be emotional and it's going to be all right. And so, like, last week, was it Friday? It was Friday afternoon. We went to my son's soccer game and she wanted to play on the playground. She was on the playground, she was on the monkey bars, but she kept falling off the monkey bars. She was getting tired and I didn't want her to fall and hurt herself. And so I scooped her up and I said, hey, let's go sit and watch your brother play for a little bit, and then we'll come back to the monkey bars. And she lost her mind. Like, lost her mind, kicking and screaming, hitting me, kicking me, trying to squirm out of my arms every which way, right? And I could have very easily flown off my rocker and yelled and screamed at her, put her in the car and screamed at her a little bit more. And instead, what I did was I sat down on the ground, a ways from the soccer field. People could still hear her yelling and screaming, and I just sat there and I held her. I held her, not contained her, not crushed her. I just held her there. One, so she couldn't get away and run, but not enough that it was painful, okay? And I just held her. And I held her until she settled down, and I rubbed her back and I rubbed her arms, and I just let her know that she was okay. I said, it's okay. We'll go back to the monkey bars in a little bit. It's okay. And it took several moments, probably several minutes, for her to settle down and regroup. And then she was fine. But I didn't fly off my rocker, and that's what I didn't want to do. And so I responded the way that I wanted to in that situation. Because I didn't lose it when she lost it, which was so good. That's how I wanted to respond. So that is your work, to find out how you want to respond, as opposed to find out how you're reacting to that thing and then decide how you want to respond. And just do this with one thing at a time, because it will build on itself. You'll see, okay, great, I got success here. Let me build on this a little bit more. It's all it takes. Maybe painfully slow, but it's actually going to create the results that you desire. So I'm sending you so much love. Thank you so much for watching today. It is now 2:22, and I am going to get ready to go to a soccer game and a volleyball game today, and soccer practice, and all the things. It's going to be an excellent day. I'm excited to watch my kids play their sports. So I hope that you have an incredible rest of your day. If you need any help and support at all in this, this would actually be a really great place for the Soulful Activation, the Soul Activation program that I have. I love you, Morgan. So my Soul Activation is a 3-week program where we will work with one of these things to help you retain your power, to reclaim your power and get it back. And that is a 3-week program for $777. That includes 2 Zoom calls, and then Voxer support for those 3 weeks to reclaim your power in one of these areas. It's really great for that. You could do it for all 3 areas, but I don't recommend doing it all at the same time because it could be overwhelming. So send me a message if you're interested in that soul activation, and I would be happy to support you. I'm sending you so much love. I hope you have an incredible rest of your day. And as always, be big, be bold, and be opulent. Bye, love.